on, guys? Welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at my track Feel Right that I just released as part of my EP on Circus Electric. I know every artist says this, but it really is like one track flowing into the next, so I hope you listen and connect to it in your own way. But yeah, so I want to do this a bit different from my other videos so far. Each video or each track will have its own focus topic for that breakdown. Yeah, so for this song Feel Right, it's kind of like a very trap leaning drop. And then kind of a hard wave drop too. So for this track in particular, I want to focus on my use of white noise and then a little bit on drop 2, and then also this little transition part here, which I thought was cool. So if you haven't heard it yet, you know, like always, go check out the whole EP, but I'll play it here from the build. So the drop drums are simple but effective, I would say. So let's see what we got here. The kick, very punchy kick, bit of EQ, bit of transient shaping. The snare, I actually took it out of the MIDI just because my sidechain fucks up with snares that have long tails. So this is a snare from my sample pack. Just a bit of transient boost, and one thing to note about the kick is I'm layering it with this. It's literally just white noise from Serum, and that kind of is like acts as a, I don't want to say like a hi-hat, but it just creates a little bit of extra crunch when you're clipping the kick through the white noise and then into the G clip on the master, and then like a couple of ghost kicks here. And the perks, literally the most simple perk group out of any track I've ever made ever. It's just a hat and a little fill there. Second half, we get this wide ride. Yeah, that's the drum. Super simple in this track. The drop 2 drums have a little more going on, which I'll get into. So that's the first use of white noise that I wanted to highlight. Putting a little bit under your kick is kind of a cool way to get some extra crunch out of it. So now looking in this samples group, we'll just kind of go layer by layer here. Really nothing in the background section, just some impacts and producer tag. So let's listen to the synths group here. So it sounds like there's a lot going on, but let's just look at it layer by layer, kind of dissect what's happening here rhythmically. So it's definitely a call and response, some bass is layered, so that one, and then these 3 here. So I'll just play this group as well. So that's all that's happening there. That's kind of like the main sound. So what's kind of bouncing off of that is going to be this sound, which is this like tonal donk reverb throw thingy. And that's the sound that really fills up the space. And without this one sound, like listen to how empty it is. So boring. This is giving it all of that high end, all of that space from this reverb throw. See how that's kind of coming in, going back down. And this one's just down a semitone, and so that's really the core of the drop, is those few sounds. Then of course we have a few other kind of filler layers, so like this vocal just made from the vocal I was using just through a granulator or Quanta, froze that down, and some bass stabs. And then this group is like I don't know, I call these like chug basses, little rhythmical elements here. And what that sounds like in context. It's like a little rhythmical thing you wouldn't really notice. It's made up of a few layers here, just EQ'd, and then just some glitches to fill in the rest of the gaps. Once you see all the layers individually, you could kind of see how they all fit together. And notice how we're really not competing for space with each other here. Every one of the sounds, like obviously this group layered, I'm talking about like a group like this as one piece. So all the different groups of sounds, they're not playing over top of each other, they're kind of sliding in and out of pockets. And then I do have some stuff that's just going to go the whole time, like this quarter note backing layer. think I just froze it because there's a lot of processing. In the vocal group too, we're gonna have like this, for example, repeating. Just keeps that simple quarter note flow going. Sub and mid bass layer. So this is the second place that I'm using this white noise trick on top of this mid bass right here. So this layer, literally just from Serum, white noise. And without it, much more dull. You could really just barely hear like a little sizzle on top. It's really nice. Really mono sound there to hold it all together. Some more backing layers in the second half. No white noise on the sub this time. Usually I do that, but yeah, very clean sub, and I did freeze it just because I wanted to be able to do these fades, and then like some higher octave subs as well. And then finally a freeze from Serum, just a Reese fill. Open it up with filters. And then the last group here for the drop is the vocals. So yeah, it's gonna be that main song vocal.
Only you make me feel right. You know.
And then this layer is just, I use it in the build too, but it's kind of cool, kind of worth mentioning. So it's like a freeze from this last part of the vocal. That part. So yeah, it's just, I just took that last part of the vocal, put it in a granulator, froze it, so we can make a little riser out of it and use it in the song. And I do believe that is it. That was world record time, quickest breakdown of my drop. So the next thing I wanted to mention in this song is this transition right here. I think it's really clean. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So let's play it back. Gotta listen to the song for the rest of it. But kind of going out of this heavy drop into this melodic midsection. And let's just dissect it a little bit to give you guys an idea how you could kind of implement this if you want to. So we're gonna have one final kick there, 2 bars before the end of the drop. The cymbals fade out. We get a much quieter kick now, less high end, less punchy. And then we get, you know, a little snare roll into full-time drums, I guess you would call it. I don't know, just breakbeat drums to me. Cymbals. So what's really creating that like moment of suspense is going to be in this sidechain group. And you could hear the sidechain there, but all of these risers and downlifters and impacts are creating this like 2-bar kind of moment of suspense where it's just an atmospherical transition, really. So that's going to be all of these individual layers. And then, you know, I'm reverbing out the drop elements. And I think one of the most important layers is this. So this is just like a vocal sweep in and out. I'm looping it to kind of make it into a lead. And before the drop actually ends, at 1 bar before, we're sweeping in this, I think it's an E note. Yeah, it's E. So that is really dragging us out of the drop right here if we listen to it. So that working together with a sub drop, the Reese is... Cat is going dumbo right now. The Reese is a lot more filtered than it was 8 bars ago. What I'm doing here is kind of using the elements I already have to create the atmosphere by reverbing them out. So this atmosphere I'm talking about, this 2-bar little gap of stuff, that's all just being created with like a mesh of all the sounds we've been using. Sub drop. You know, so the Reese is kind of working here really closely with this vocal layer if we listen to them together. You'll notice they both have pitch bend on them, and I'm fading this in, you know, just very carefully. Final element is vocal pad layer and the actual next vocals for the midsection. Of course, you know we had to put the rude boy in it. Yeah, so let's give that one more listen here and move on. All right, just like that, we are into the last drop of this song, the melodic drop, kind of a hard wave type drop. That's what I went for, at least. You see a bunch of layers, go into these a little bit, but let's go ahead and run it back really quick from the build. So, like I said, a bit more going on with the drums, but still nothing crazy. So we've added a couple of trappy kind of hat loops, this huge synth crash, which is doing a lot for that high end. A couple of risers for that little fake out. So I think the group processing for the synths is important, and that's how it gets the space. So let's play that alone. So I could go layer by layer here, but this is just, you know, basic synth layers. I will touch on two important things. Number one, and this is the third instance and the third highlight I want to make of literal white noise. So this layer, it's panning left and right. It's being EQ'd pretty heavily. And that is really just filling up the higher end. It's almost kind of giving the whole stack an OTT type feel without crushing everything and putting OTT on it, because OTT kind of just gives you that buzz. So that's all I'm doing here, adding a bit of buzz. And, you know, this is kind of a tangent, but really quick, something I think is kind of worthwhile. So I made a rack. I call it Sport Literal Noise. So yeah, literally just bright white from Serum. Just drag this MIDI, doesn't matter what it is. And all I've done here is added this LFO to the frequency of the low cut. Again, it's just panning a little bit left and right just to make it slightly less mono. And one thing you can do here if you wanted to is add another point to, say, the frequency of 4. So now, and we'd have to adjust this obviously, but now they're going to move together, and this is a nice way to just add a little bit of movement in your drop. So let's listen to this. So it's kind of like having a consistent riser and downlifter, keeping the energy in your drop. So yeah, I don't know, real quick tangent, but this is super simple to make. Just copy this. Great way for these kinds of melodic drops with a lot of saws, just to fill it out a little bit, add a bit of sweet movement. So yeah, this is just a bunch of various layers. Next important thing for a stack like this is to not just use lead sounds from Serum. Use something natural, like for example here, found this pad on Splice. Worked really well. Another one. That one even has some cool accent notes in it, which I used for the outro too. Or make your own. So like this one, this is a freeze from Granulator of the vocal we've been using. EQing it. And then one from Quanta again. So even though these are just holding one note, you know, it still adds a lot. And then I'll get back to the mid basses, but I think there's one more. Yeah, there's one more here in the vocal group. Atmos layer. Yeah, I got this freeze of the vocal again here. And then also here. And then, so along with all these like vocal pads, we also have just actual vocals. A lot of reverb, a lot of delay, just to create a little moment like right here. before I go over the mid basses, important thing I think for this, like I was saying, the group processing does play a big role. So we're compressing everything together, camel crushing everything together, and then a 20% 2-second reverb on everything. This is really putting it all in the same room, in the same space. All these sounds are now blending into one. The LFO here is just to create that rhythm. Without it, it's just kind of boring. This reverb is just for throws, and then one final EQ. Okay. So then the mid basses, so just one for the fake out, but when the drop actually hits, we got 2 layers. Super simple. Got a saw sounding one, and then an in it. Keeping it really simple with this drop here, guys. And then finally the sub. So for this drop, I don't know if you remember, but the first drop, we didn't have the buzz sub. This one we do have the noise sub. And when this drop comes around for that second 8 bars, it does feel more impactful because I've went up an octave on a few of the layers. But also, one thing that's important here, this one. Yeah, so this layer right here, where it was doing the same notes as everything else in the first part, in the second part, it's actually going to create a harmony layer. So let's choose like one of these sounds and listen to them together. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you prefer this kind of quicker format to show it all off in a more digestible time period, or if you prefer the really long version where I go through even the intro and, you know, every sound. Yeah, just let me know, but expect 3 more of these videos for the other 3 songs on this EP. And yeah, see you next time.